In 2003, I started visiting San Francisco from Reno and would stay in Pacific Heights with my cousin. I really enjoyed coming to the city because it was a big city experience. It was just a stone's throw away from my hometown. And after a while, and spending so much time here, I thought I could actually live here. In fact, I actually want to live here. So I asked around, where does a 20-something-year-old live in San Francisco? The overwhelming response was that you had to live in either the Marina or Cow Hollow, but they're so close together, one could pass for the other one. So that's what I settled on, and I lived there for quite a long time before eventually moving to Marin. Now, this is not to say that I should have considered other neighborhoods, because in hindsight, I would have loved to have given some other neighborhoods a try, or had spent some time there during my time that I lived in San Francisco. But ultimately, I ended up spending my entire time in the Marina. So for those that work in tech or finance or other industries that are doing really well here, particularly AI, and they're looking for a trendy, upscale, city life neighborhood and lifestyle, the Marina and Cow Hollow is probably going to be it for you. So today we're gonna take a deep dive into what that real estate and or rental market is like, what the lifestyle is like, who lives there, what the amenities are, and ultimately everything you need to know before deciding to make a move to this very cool neighborhood. But before we do that, I wanna quickly introduce myself. Again, my name is Arjun Dhingra. I am a two-time Taekwondo world champion, the owner of this YouTube channel, and a long-time mortgage advisor of roughly 24 years. It would mean a lot to me if you liked this video and subscribe to the channel so that we can continue to reach more people like you with content like this that helps people make better decisions about moving to San Francisco, and more importantly, how they're going to move when they eventually decide to purchase property here. Now, if my team can be of any help to you in the way of providing resources or even ultimately helping you obtain that mortgage and financing for buying an investment property or a place to live in, please reach out to me at Arjun Mortgage on Instagram. I answer all of my DMs, and I would be honored to help you out with such a decision. So let's get into today's video. Now, as a quick preview, we are going to cover the real estate and rental market, cost of living, amenities, lifestyle, and ultimately what the commuting situation is for those that choose to live in this neighborhood and how they're going to get around town. Now, here's a quick fun fact before we get into this about Cow Hollow, because people ask often, where did that name come from? Well, in the 1800s, that entire area, believe it or not, was a huge cow pasture. That's right, it was an actual dairy farm on all of that land. Now, of course, today's look and feel of that neighborhood is a far cry from anything that has to do with a dairy farm, but that's where the name for the neighborhood Cow Hollow actually came from. So first things first, let's get into the real estate market itself. Now, these are some of the most desirable neighborhoods in all of San Francisco, but with that desire and demand means that they're a lot more expensive. Now, as of this last March, 2025, the median rent in the Marina district was just under $3,200. Now, for Cow Hollow, it is just under $3,400, which is 71% higher than the national average for rent. Now, for home prices, they're pretty close. It's about $2.4 million in Cow Hollow and just under $2.2 million in the Marina. Now, before I go any further, let's actually define what is the difference in terms of the neighborhoods and where they break between Cow Hollow and the Marina, because they often get lumped together or mentioned in the same sentence, and I mistakenly have done that. I probably did it in this video already, but I want to formalize for you guys, what is the difference between Cow Hollow and the Marina? The easiest way to do this, guys, is think of Lombard Street, which pretty much cuts right down the middle of these two neighborhoods. Everything to the north of Lombard is considered the Marina district, and that is because of its proximity to the water. Think of it that way. To the south of Lombard is what we consider Cow Hollow. Now, these have more Edwardian and Victorian homes, a little bit more of an older, established, character-based type of architecture, things that are unique to San Francisco. There's also the lively commercial corridor known as Union Street, and we're gonna get into that when I talk about nightlife and what the social aspect is of that neighborhood. So that's the break and understanding the difference between the two neighborhoods. Now, there's no major advantage to living in one over the other. They're both incredibly beautiful and literally a stone's throw away, because again, it's just divided by one street. So living in one over the other is more of a personal choice, but it also could be a financial choice considering that there is a difference in cost, renting or owning to these neighborhoods. So who actually lives here? I've made mention to tech and finance and real estate and AI, but in reality, anyone, and it could be someone who's self-employed, maybe they're artists who happen to do really well. They could also be retired. So it's not just exclusively limited to people with those backgrounds, but we refer to that a lot because that is what makes up the majority of the working population here in San Francisco. But the bottom line is that this area attracts high-earning professionals, with residents being in their 30s and 40s, and the median income of a Cow Hollow or Marina resident is about $211,000 per year. So you might be wondering, how do young people actually afford to live there if they're not making that much money, which they probably are not, especially at a startup or someplace new or their first job living here in San Francisco? Well, reality is there are a lot of people who manage to do it on less than a median income. They do so by renting smaller apartments, opting to have a lot of roommates, or living in a rent-controlled unit. And those rent-controlled units effectively grandfather people in at lower rent rates. Another common strategy is what we call co-living. Now, what co-living arrangements are is where you take groups of individuals and they'll take a larger space and somehow make it workable. This is where you'll see 3 or 4 people living in a 2-bedroom unit. Now, the way they do this is they'll actually divide maybe the living room or some extra space that might be unique, because all the properties are super unique and have their own character. There's no set layout in the marina. But you'll see converted living area or living spaces, maybe even an actual living room, turned into a bedroom. And they'll either hang up a curtain or put up some kind of a false wall, share the bathrooms, and that's how they manage to make it work. So this can drive down costs. It's probably not good for your social or dating life if you do this for too long, because nobody wants to come stay over with their significant other in the living room that's not really a bedroom. You guys get where I'm going with this. But hey, this is how a lot of people have made it work, especially in the early going, to save some money but still get all the benefits of living in that amazing space. But a lot of residents have managed to stay in this neighborhood over the long haul because of those rent control policies that have helped keep their payments fixed and far more affordable. As the cost of renting has continued to escalate, they get to keep their rate flat. Now, just for some context, guys, about how much rent has increased over the years living in the marina. When I moved there in 2003, 2004, I rented a beautiful junior 1-bedroom studio in the marina right next to the Safeway, in fact, over there, which I was told was called the Dateway because you could easily land a date there, although I had no such luck. But that's for another YouTube video. But my rent was $1,200. Now, you could not find anything in this neighborhood for $1,200, but that just goes to show you how much things have increased. In fact, that particular junior 1-bedroom studio, I checked, and it now rents for just under $3,000. Now, another quick fact about the marina, a lot of it was rebuilt after the 1989 earthquake. And so many of the buildings that you see in this neighborhood are part of that post-earthquake construction era. So that's who lives in the marina and how they actually live there, and the incomes that they earn, roughly, to be able to make it work. And again, if you're under that median income, there are ways to do it, like I just explained, and it's very common. So things are expensive, but they continue to get more expensive. So however you got to find a way to break in, especially with some of these co-living arrangements like we talked about, is probably going to be your ticket. So what is it like to actually live here? What's the social scene like? Well, I can tell you from having lived there for a long time, it is amazing. It's a very vibrant social scene. You've got incredible brunch spots along Chestnut Street with also some nice boutiques, bookshops, and plenty of coffee spots. And then up on Union Street in Cow Hollow, you've got a really vibrant nightlife scene there. Some cool wine bars, dive bars, and some of the best restaurants in the city. There's also some really high-end gyms on both streets, Chestnut for the marina and Union for Cow Hollow. But the bottom line is that there's always something happening. So much so to the point where on any given Thursday, Friday, or Saturday night, the majority of the people that you'll probably see out, if you ask them, don't even live in those neighborhoods. In fact, they've probably come over the bridge because this area is so sought after in terms of its social scene. Now, if you are an outdoor or a fitness enthusiast, then either one of these neighborhoods are going to be incredible for you, because down in the marina, you have access to Chrissy Field, the Marina Green, and the Presidio, which offer amazing places to be running outside, working out outside, socializing, picnicking, playing sports. And on a sunny day, these areas will be completely packed with everyone just hanging out. There's also some incredible landmarks and attractions that are unique to just San Francisco, such as, of course, the Golden Gate Bridge, the Wave Organ, and the beautiful Palace of Fine Arts, which I was fortunate to live across the street from for the last 7 years that I lived in this neighborhood. Now, a fun fact about the Wave Organ is that this is a unique structure that creates music from the waves coming in off the ocean. It's also one of San Francisco's hidden gems. And one of the most iconic landmarks in the marina is the Palace of Fine Arts I said earlier. So the Palace of Fine Arts was originally built for the 1915 Panama Pacific Exposition, was meant to just be for that alone, and was meant to never be permanent. Thankfully, it was saved and remains one of San Francisco's most iconic landmarks. Another quick note as we wrap this up, guys, regarding the social element. This is where a lot of singles do live, so I've heard that this can be a great neighborhood as far as your dating life could be concerned, or to just meet and make lots of new friends, particularly if you're brand new to the city. But that is not to say that you can't experience that in other neighborhoods too. But ultimately, guys, this neighborhood is highly walkable, extremely safe, has great proximity to things, and you don't even really need a car to live in this neighborhood. In fact, most of the residents, because of limited parking or no parking at all being offered up in many of the buildings, they don't even have a car. They don't need it. And that gets us into the next section, which is how do people commute and get around this area to work or other spots in the city. So San Francisco's Muni system serves this area very nicely and effectively. The Presidio Go shuttle can get you around, but also the 30X Marina Express is just a quick ride downtown. And many of the Marina residents actually use this to get to work down in the financial district, North Beach, Soma, and other spots where a lot of the jobs are held now that back to work requirements are in place. Driving and freeway access is very easy because it's not difficult to cut through the city to get over to the Bay Bridge to head east. Heading north is just minutes away because you're right on the 101 and quickly onto the Golden Gate Bridge to head to Marin, Napa, Sonoma, and even further north, which is very popular and trendy. And then getting to the airport is quick by just shooting across 19th Avenue all the way until you hit the 280 and you're ultimately at the San Francisco airport, sometimes in as little as 30 minutes. But really the only negative or challenging thing about this area is the lack of parking. On any given night in San Francisco, 4,000 vehicles are parked illegally. That could be 4,000 parking tickets, but nobody's working that late to try and write these people up. But you guys get the point. There's just so limited parking space or available areas for cars to park, which is why more and more people are opting to go vehicleless and rely on public transportation again now that it's become much safer. So as a final thought, living in the Marina or Cow Hollow comes at a very high cost. These are not cheap neighborhoods. You have high rent, expensive home prices, and a premium lifestyle, literally for everything that you do. Even the coffee is more expensive. So it's not the most budget-friendly place, but if you can find ways to have some financial disciplines, pick up a side hustle, or figure out cost-effective ways to live, like we talked about earlier in this video, it's well worth it in terms of the trade-offs. But to recap, living in either neighborhood is a fantastic option for individuals that want city living with great outdoor access, a high emphasis on looking good, feeling good, doing good, top-tier dining, and an overall vibrant community. So I'd love to hear from you guys. What do you think? Could you see yourself living in the Marina or Cow Hollow? Have you lived in either one of these neighborhoods, and what was your experience like? Again, mine was a fantastic one for the time that I lived in the city. I wouldn't trade it for anything, although, like I said, I do wish I'd given some other neighborhoods a chance, but my chapter in the Marina was definitely a memorable one. That's it for today's video, guys. Please don't forget to subscribe to this channel and like this video. Send me back any feedback or comments on what you'd like to hear more about as it pertains to living in San Francisco or the Bay Area in general. And we'll see you guys on the next video.